The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days. It was the kind of relentless downpour that turned streets into rivers and dreams into puddles of exhaustion. Inside Millie's diner, the neon sign flickered weakly, casting a ghostly glow over the empty booths. It was almost midnight, and the hum of the coffee machine was the only sound keeping Sarah awake. Her apron was stained with coffee, and tears she never let anyone see. She had been working double shifts for weeks now, trying to pay rent, trying to keep her mother's medicine refilled, trying to survive one small kindness short of collapse. But tonight would test her spirit in a way she never imagined. Before we go deeper into this story, if you believe in kindness, respect, and second chances, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring real and emotional stories that touch hearts around the world. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she set down a plate of pancakes for the only 2 customers left in the corner booth, a pair of truckers who were quiet, polite, and tired. She smiled softly, the kind of smile that came from habit, not happiness. The radio played an old country song about heartbreak, and for a fleeting moment, she let her mind drift away. She imagined herself somewhere else, a little cottage by the lake, her mom sitting by the window, healthy and smiling, the world finally quiet. Then the door burst open. 3 men stumbled in, soaked from the rain, their heavy boots clanging against the tiled floor. The smell of alcohol hit her before their words did. One of them, a tall man with a scar down his cheek and wild eyes, slammed his hand on the counter and laughed. "Hey, sweetheart, how about a smile for your new customers?" he slurred. The others chuckled behind him, taking off their wet jackets and tossing them carelessly over a booth. Sarah's stomach tightened. She had seen their type before, loud, mean, and looking for trouble. She tried to stay calm, gripping her order pad tightly. "Good evening. What can I get you gentlemen tonight?" she asked, her voice steady despite her fear. The scar-faced man leaned closer, his breath hot and foul. "Oh, we'll start with 3 coffees, and maybe later you can serve us something better, huh?" His words oozed with mockery. His friends erupted in laughter, banging the table like a drum. Sarah forced a tight smile, pretending she didn't hear. She turned to walk away, but he grabbed her wrist, hard. "I said serve us, Btch," he hissed, pulling her closer. The sound of his hand hitting the counter echoed like thunder. "Where's that sweet service you give everyone else?" For a moment, the world went silent. Even the rain seemed to pause outside. The 2 truckers in the corner exchanged nervous glances but looked down, unwilling to intervene. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she yanked her arm free. "Please," she whispered, "I'm just trying to do my job." The men laughed louder, the leader raising his voice. "Oh, she's got spirit, boys. Let's see how long it lasts." He kicked over a chair, sending it crashing to the floor. Sarah stepped back, her breath shaking, her eyes darting toward the door, praying anyone would walk through it. And that's when she heard it. The low, thunderous rumble of motorcycle engines cutting through the storm. The sound grew louder, closer, until it drowned out the laughter of the thugs. Headlights sliced through the rain outside as 4 motorcycles rolled up to the diner, their chrome glinting under the flickering neon light. Sarah froze, her heart in her throat. The men turned toward the door, their smirks faltering. The diner door swung open, and in walked 4 bikers, drenched, broad-shouldered, and silent. Their jackets bore the emblem of a skull with wings. Iron Saints Motorcycle Club. The leader, a tall man with a thick beard and piercing blue eyes, scanned the room once before his gaze settled on Sarah. For a moment, nobody spoke. The air was thick enough to choke on. Then the scar-faced thug sneered, trying to hide his fear. Well, what do we have here? Heroes on wheels?" he mocked. "Why don't you mind your business and let the lady do her job?" The biker didn't answer. He simply walked forward, his heavy boots thudding against the floor, each step louder than the last. When he reached the counter, he took off his gloves slowly, his eyes never leaving the man's face. "You're right," he said calmly. "She is doing her job, and you're about to learn some respect for people who actually work for a living." The room went still again. The thugs shifted uneasily, glancing at each other. The leader of the bikers turned slightly toward Sarah. "You okay, miss?" he asked, his tone softer now, protective. Sarah nodded weakly, her throat too tight to speak. The next few seconds happened fast. The scar-faced man lunged forward, but before he could reach the biker, the latter caught his arm and twisted it sharply behind his back. The thug cried out in pain, stumbling as the biker shoved him toward the door. "Get out," he growled. "All of you, now." His friends hesitated, but one look at the other bikers, who stood like immovable walls, sent them scrambling. They shoved past the door, cursing under their breath as they disappeared into the rain. Silence returned. Only the sound of raindrops tapping against the window remained. Sarah stood frozen behind the counter, tears she'd been holding back now spilling freely. The biker turned to her again, his expression softening. "No one should talk to you like that," he said quietly. "You did nothing wrong." She shook her head, wiping her tears. "Thank you," she whispered. "I didn't think anyone would step in." He smiled faintly. "Good people still exist, ma'am. You just had to meet the right kind." He and his crew sat down quietly, ordering coffee and pie like any other customers. They didn't talk much, just exchanged glances that said everything words couldn't. When Sarah brought their order, her hands still trembled, but for the first time in months, she felt safe. As she poured their coffee, the leader noticed her bruised wrist and frowned. "They hurt you?" he asked. She shook her head quickly, but he knew better. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded $100 bill, and set it on the counter. "For you," he said. "And don't argue." She hesitated, shaking her head. "I can't take this." "Then don't take it for you," he replied gently. "Take it for your peace of mind." There was something in his voice, something firm yet kind, something that reminded her of her late father, who used to tell her, "You don't have to be strong all the time, Sarah. You just have to keep standing." As the night wore on, the rain began to ease. The bikers stayed for another hour, sharing small talk with her, laughing softly, telling her about their cross-country ride. They weren't what people assumed. Not dangerous, not reckless. They were veterans, mechanics, and fathers, men who'd seen too much of the world's cruelty and chose to carry a bit of kindness with them. When they finally stood to leave, the leader looked back one last time. "You're stronger than you think, Sarah," he said quietly, "but don't ever face the darkness alone again." And with that, they walked out into the dawn, their engines roaring to life as they vanished into the wet horizon. Sarah stood by the window long after they left. Something inside her had shifted, not because someone saved her, but because someone saw her. For the first time in years, she felt visible, worthy, human. The next morning, the diner filled again with customers. Life went on, as it always did. But Sarah moved differently now, with confidence in her steps, warmth in her smile, and a quiet strength that no longer wavered. Days turned into weeks. The incident became a memory, whispered about by locals, admired by strangers. Some called it luck, others fate. But for Sarah, it was a turning point. She started taking night classes, saving a little from every paycheck, dreaming of owning her own small cafe one day, a place where no one would ever feel invisible again. One evening, months later, she was closing up when she heard that familiar rumble again outside. Her heart raced, not in fear, but hope. She stepped out into the parking lot, wiping her hands on her apron. There they were, the same 4 bikers, engines idling, headlights cutting through the dusk. The leader took off his helmet and grinned. "Heard Millie retired," he said. "You running the place now?" Sarah smiled, her eyes shining. "Almost," she said proudly. "A few more months, and it'll be mine." He nodded approvingly. "Knew you'd make it." He pulled something from his jacket, a small metal pin with the Iron Saints insignia. "Not for the club," he said, handing it to her. "For courage." Tears filled her eyes as she took it, clutching it like a treasure. "Thank you for everything." He shook his head. "Don't thank me. You stood up that night. We just reminded you that you could." And then, with a final nod, the 4 bikers rode off once more, leaving behind the scent of rain and the echo of hope. Sarah looked at the pin in her palm, her reflection glinting in the chrome. It wasn't just a symbol. It was proof that kindness could still exist in the harshest of nights. She pinned it to her apron, turned off the diner lights, and whispered to herself, "Keep standing, Sarah. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and share it with someone who needs a little faith in humanity today. And don't forget to subscribe. Your support helps us keep telling stories that remind the world what compassion looks like. Special request in the comments tell us, have you ever experienced kindness from a stranger when you least expected it? Your story might inspire someone else to believe again. And with that, the neon sign flickered off. Outside, the rain had stopped, and somewhere beyond the clouds, the dawn was waiting.